Good evening, and welcome to today's news, Changing Our Narrative. As we always do, we like to open with positive news. So, this past Thursday, Mary Hester of Life Venture Real Estate Solutions and Tammy Thompson of Catapult, Greater Pittsburgh, hosted the Black Excellence in Real Estate Awards Gala. The evening was nothing short of amazing. As a reminder, both these women are dedicated to making sure Black people own their own homes. There's nothing more than sovereignty over your own uh, homes and estates. So kudos to them. We congratulate them and we hope you will too. Whew. Switching gears. It looks like one DA cannot follow the law. The Somerset County District Attorney was arrested Wednesday and charged with raping and physically assaulting a female acquaintance, Pennsylvania State Police said. DA Jeffrey Lynn Thomas faces rape, strangulation, criminal trespass, and other charges following the incident in Windber on Saturday night, according to state police. Mr. Thomas was arraigned Wednesday night, and he is being held only on $5,000 bail in the Cambria County Prison. The arrest came a day after state police began investigating the alleged attack. Police said Mr. Thomas entered the home of a female acquaintance and refused to leave after being told to get out of the house. The district attorney is then said to have sexually and physically assaulted the woman. Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro called the charges against Mr. Thomas deeply disturbing. Let's hope we see some justice. Speaking of charges, or should we say mudslinging, WTAE TV had reported in April that the AAGG PAC, which has connections to Representative Gainey, received more than $100,000 in contributions that it did not disclose in campaign finance reports to the county. Loretta Payne, treasurer of the PAC called African Americans for Good Government, was ultimately determined to be the person responsible for violating the election code as a result of an investigation by Allegheny County Police, according to a statement. The Pittsburgh media was ever so agile and quick to point out that PAC had ties to Ed Gainey. And I wonder, or rather we wonder, if the Pittsburgh media will be equally as fast to point out that Mr. Gainey himself was never under investigation. We were not aware of these charges until receiving your email and have not seen the details of the allegations, so we are not able to comment on the charges at this time, reads a statement. The statement continues. Like many other elected officials, Representative Gainey supported the efforts of African Americans for good government to increase Black voter turnout in our region. But, and I emphasize, He was never an officer of the PAC and has never played any role in its bookkeeping or campaign finance filings, the statement read. I'm going to read that statement again, read the last part of that statement. Representative Gainey supported the efforts of African Americans for Good Government to increase voter turnout in our region. But he was never an officer of the PAC and has never played any role in its bookkeeping or campaign finance filings. Understood? I'm so glad. It just makes me wonder, are retractions forthcoming? We checked, and to date, neither WTAE, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the Pittsburgh Tribune, KDKA, or WPXI printed or noted any retraction or clarification of this story. So we're clarifying it for them here at today's news because we're changing the narrative in a city that proclaims it is stronger than hate. Racism, as if that wasn't enough racism, rears its ugly head, its ugly, entitled head, once again. Allegations of racism slowed the flow at America's original Black Beer Festival. Dave Bracy, the producer of the fourth annual Barrel and Flow Fest on September 11th, says that the general manager of Pittsburgh's franchise of the international Hofbrauhaus brewery and beer garden chain, Vince Quinzio, verbally abused the production vendors with racist language and caused the peaceful festival to shut down early, leaving 2,000 attendees offended, harassed, and annoyed. Mr. Bracy has received international acclaim for his production of these festivals and decided to bring the event to the open air venue of the Southside Works Shopping Center. It was a fabulous time. Not only did Southside Works cut the power to the stage at the festival at 7:30, even though the permit for the festival went until 9 o'clock. The general manager of Hofbrauhaus himself called the police, reporting noise violations. The noise ordinance doesn't even go into effect until 10 p.m. He also blocked Black attendees from entering the venue and screamed at production crews that his customers wanted these niggers to leave. And that's a quotation mark. I don't like the word myself. That would be Vince Quinzio's language for the people who were attending the festival. And he also asked for them to get rid of these animals. Mr. Bracy has met with the Urban Redevelopment Authority, the owners of the actual stage, and together they are also investigating and say they are committed to doing the right thing by Mr. Bracy. All of a sudden, and on defense, both Southside Works and Hofbrauhaus corporate issued statements, which read, a spokesperson for Southside Works says, regarding Hofbrau, we simply have asked them to be a good neighbor. Our management has spoken with them regarding these matters, and it's an ongoing conversation. What happened at Barrel and Flow was unacceptable. Hofbrauhaus said, "We have been in contact with Hofbrauhaus Pittsburgh to ensure this situation is addressed and to ensure that the non-discriminatory standards of Hofbrauhaus are met. As always, we will stay on this and we will bring you updates when we get them. But I'm believing Pittsburgh's going to Pittsburgh. We'll see." Mount Lebanon School Board. Oh, Mount Lebanon. Mount Lebanon School Board race roiled as a candidate quits over exposure of a 2014 abuse complaint. Andrew Freeman has been on the school board since October when he was selected to replace Michael Reamer, who stepped down after making profane comments that were caught on a live mic prior to a September 2020 board meeting. Mr. Freeman, a Democrat, was, unsurprisingly, the first Black person to serve on the board and was planning to run for a full term this November as part of a slate of candidates supported by the group One Lebo. But Mr. Freeman resigned after information was sent to the district and board members regarding an incident that led his wife, Jamie Freeman, to file a protection from abuse order against him. Mr. Freeman and his wife are still married, and they have said that they have worked to move past this situation. Mrs. Freeman, and it's always important to hear what the women have to say, Mrs. Freeman had this to say: "Let me be crystal clear. I have my husband's back, period. Unequivocally, then, now, and always." Mrs. Freeman wrote, "After this incident in 2014, he willingly underwent intensive therapy through which a mental health condition was identified. He did the work, his record was expunged, and we are very happy as a family." Redemption is possible if people put the work in. Always remember, redemption is possible if people put the work in. So, who sent this information? Who sent this information to the school district? You be the judge. Let's take a break. And we'll get. All right. Thank you for staying with us through the break. You know, it is always a really excellent day to support Black businesses. So find out more about the Black businesses near you and go out and support. In recent reports, the overdose death rate is significantly higher for Blacks in Allegheny County. A study released September 9th, conducted in partnership with the National Institute on Drug Abuse at the National Institutes of Health, analyzed overdose data and death certificates from 4 states: Kentucky, Ohio, Massachusetts, and New York. And it found that the rate of opioid deaths among African Americans increased by 38% from 2018 and 2019. Rates for other racial groups did not rise. Uh, a quote, Dr. Cook told the Courier recently, exclusively, he said, Dr. Cook said, you would think that crack cocaine is primarily the main drug African Americans use because it's in the movies. Dr. Cook continues, we use opioids at the same rate as our white counterparts. That's seen by society as a white problem. We need to get more African American patients in our doors because we have the problem, but we're not getting the help. The study found that African Americans' opioid overdose os- opioid overdose death rates rose from 31.3 to 43.2 per 100,000 adults. And part of what's fueling the rise in Black overdose deaths is the presence of fentanyl, the highly powerful synthetic opioid that's often laced in heroin. And it's happening close to home. In 2020, 84%, that's 584 people, 84% of all overdose deaths in Allegheny County were related to fentanyl. Compare that with 2014, when fentanyl related overdoses accounted for just 33% of the 424 total overdose deaths in the county. Across Pennsylvania, officials were alarmed to the fact that Black overdose deaths jumped 63% from 2018 to 2020. And for whites, it increased just 5%. What affects one of us affects us all. We hear at today's news, Changing the Narrative, plan to invite addiction specialists and physicians to discuss this in depth on a later show. So stay with our broadcast because we don't want to let our people or these disturbing numbers to fall through the cracks. We've got to get a handle on this in our community. We got to get a handle on ourselves. Okay, I have some really good news though, and this is exciting. And if you know the Hill District, you're going to be excited with me. One store, four visions. Hill District's residents are going to have an opportunity to score grocery proposals. This is exciting because it's going to be a grocery store in the Hill District, which is an incredible effort to solve our food desert problem there. In the virtual display window, from what we can tell, there's a number of choices. There will be a health-focused store by Denver-based startup Family Tree Food Market, which would include an in-house dietitian and offer help accessing social services. And Denver-based startup Family Tree Food Market says, we are ready to open our store in March of 2022. That's how committed we are. And that was Daniel Craddock, who is a co-owner of the company who has roots in the Hill District. A hybrid food and hardware co-op. This is another choice that Hill District residents will have. A hybrid food and hardware co-op would be governed by employees and shoppers and spearheaded by a coalition of Hill residents led by Samuel Pierre and Claudie Pierre of Pierre Development. By fulfilling two needs, they would bring multiple revenue streams to the area, and the co-op structure would keep the proceeds in the Hill District, the Pierre said. Another choice viewers are going to have, a Fresh International Market would be the seventh in the small Midwestern chain and would feature an affordable mix of produce, fresh and live seafood, and dry goods. It would also include a juice bar and a bakery, but would not have super expensive offerings like $6 organic avocados said Bowen Koo, who's the president of the company. And then another option is locally raised and processed meats would be a centerpiece of Salim's Market and Grill, conceived of as the second location for this family owned strip district company. And Abdullah Salim, an owner of Salim's Market and Grill, says this is an opportunity to be part of history by contributing to the monumental efforts of the Hill CDC and the community as a whole. So, residents of the Hill District have 1 month until month's end, actually, to fill out the scorecard. There's a scorecard that's available, and all you have to do to access this scorecard is be a resident of the Hill District and contact the Hill District CDC for more information. Okay, let's move over to national news. Uh, The coroner of LaSalle County, Illinois, on Thursday identified a body found earlier this month as missing graduate student Jelani Day. Jelani Day was a 25-year-old graduate student at Illinois State University, whose mother said that he aspired to become a speech pathologist and was reported missing on August 25th in Bloomington, Illinois. Day's mother, Carmen Bolden Day, had spoken out in recent days pleading for more help finding her son after the massive wave of interest sparked in the case of Gabby Petito, which has highlighted the disparities between cases where the missing person is white and those involving Black and brown persons. Officer John Furman with the Bloomington Police Department said Thursday that while the case recently received national attention, locally he believes it received a good amount of attention from the beginning and sympathizes with the cases that don't get exposure. We're, quotation from Furman, we're lucky the story actually exploded as well as it did, which may or may not have led to the tips that came in. Furman continued during a news conference to say, we've had people going out of their way, drive a few hours just to walk around. Day was last seen on August 24th, and his vehicle was located in Peru, Illinois, a couple of days later on August 26th. An initial search took place on August 26th. Furman said there were extensive canine searches conducted by the Illinois State Police, drone aerial searches by local jurisdictions, and ground searches. Nothing was found then or in subsequent searches, he said, yet his body was found and in the coroner's possession on September 4th. The family was not contacted until September 24th. The question is, had the story never gotten national attention, would the family ever have been contacted? Or would Jelani have been buried, unknown, in a pauper's grave, case cold and unresolved? We must promote, share, and demand equal attention and investigation for every one of our missing brothers and sisters, children, fathers, mothers, cousins, play cousins, and every member of our community, every single time. In other news, it's been a wild and often profoundly upsetting 6-week road to closing arguments in R. Kelly's racketeering trial. And the defense team maintained that energy until the very end. In his last address to the jury, Kelly's attorney, Devereaux Canick, evoked the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., reportedly drawing a dramatic comparison between the legendary civil rights leader and the disgraced singer. Now, according to both the New York Post and the Daily News, Kanek quoted from King's "I've been to the mountaintop" speech. He said, "Somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly." Purportedly, like Dr. King, Kelly simply wants to force the American government to be true to what's on paper, i.e., the laws. That's all Robert is trying to do, Kanek urged. Martin Luther King Jr. Really? Really? It is past time we openly discuss sexual predators lurking in our community, why they get a pass or a look the other way because they have talent. Do their crimes not affect our children because they're famous? No. Well, you'll be happy to know, as of broadcast today, R. Kelly has been convicted of all 6 charges. So last week we were talking to you about the Haitian migrants who were under the Del Rio border camp, and they've been cleared. So where are they? The U.S. has been putting Haitians on expulsion flights since Sunday, as the Biden administration enforces a Trump-era public health order expelling migrants without giving them a chance to seek asylum. Under that order, known as Title 42, Department of Homeland Security has flown about 2,000 migrants on 17 flights to Haiti, Mayorkas said. Around 8,000 people decided to return to Mexico voluntarily, he said, and the massive migrant camp has put a spotlight on the Biden administration's border policies, particularly after U.S. Border Patrol agents were photographed using their horses and, in at least one instance, long reins, like whips, to chase Haitian migrants. President Biden said Friday that the agents' actions were outrageous and promised consequences for those responsible for the controversial incident at the border. It's an embarrassment. It's beyond an embarrassment, Biden added. It's dangerous. It's wrong. It sends the wrong message around the world. It sends the wrong message at home. It's simply not who we are. But it is actually who we are. Horse patrols at that part of the border are now suspended, though. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said on Thursday. Earlier this week, Psaki repeatedly called the scene horrific. Many of the migrants who were caught up in the border agents' actions were attempting to bring food back from Mexico to the huge encampment under the international bridge in Del Rio. Most of the migrants are from Haiti, although some are from Cuba, Brazil, and other countries. Title 42 is not an immigration policy, Mayorkas says. The Biden administration has faced intense criticism over Title 42 expulsions, including charges that they are inhumane and immoral. Mayorkas emphasized Title 42's status as a public health order, stating it is not an immigration policy. Title 42 is the federal regulation expulsion clause approved back in 1946 and says persons subject to the order are not held in congregate areas for processing and are instead immediately expelled to their country of last transit. But Title 42 was used as a weapon by the Trump administration. Remember how he continued to refer to immigrants at the southern border as diseased, filthy, and worthless? Well, the Biden administration ran on abolishing its use in that form, but clearly they have not. The curious part is, how are they even returning Haitians to Haiti when the clause clearly states to return them to the country of last transit. So that would be Mexico, Brazil, and Venezuela. It does not say country of origin. There is only one country they could access the southern border from on foot. But tell us again why nearly 100 were flown to be dropped off in Haiti? We will have a chat on the news after we take this here break. You got me. Hey, we're going to wrap up tonight with some of the thoughts that I have about all the things that have been just floating around lately. There's just something in the air. Maybe it's autumn. Maybe this autumn is coming in. Oh, hello.
Hello
How are
there.
you,
How are
Denise?
you?
I'm
I'm
good. I'm
well.
good.
I
So
just came in to join the discussion about the news show. That's all.
that's wonderful. I'm so excited to have you. So talk to me. We have had a week of news here, and a lot going on. I have a lot to say about some of the things we've been experiencing, and I'm very curious about the Haitians, the issue of the Haitians going back to having them taken back to Haiti, especially since many of them did not originate from Haiti. They're fleeing countries that they had fled to after they fled Haiti. Um, Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, that is really let's talk about that, and hopefully we can get some folks from the audience to join in. But before we go there, I just wanted to double back to the first piece of the news tonight when we led in with the Black Excellence Real Estate Award Gala. So I attended that, and let me just tell you, it was out of this world.
Tell me all
Okay.
about it. What went on? Because this idea
Listen,
of home ownership is so important. It is so necessary for us um, to have a stake in our communities, to have an ownership stake in our communities. So, how are these women helping? What was the gala like? What was everyone wearing?
oh my God, you want the 411?
I want all the stories. I want all the stories.
So first, let me just tell you, Tammy Thompson and Mary Hester put on the gala. Now, Mary Hester owns her own real estate firm, and Tammy actually, and I always pronounce it wrong, Counterput. She is the executive director there. But they came on and they opened up and they gave their opening speeches or whatnot, and they talked about the need for Black ownership for housing. And you could just see the dedication that these women had. Like, I had tears in my eyes, and I was sitting at a table with some folks from Key Bank because we came to show our support, and to hear the stories of the different awardees that came onto the show, well, that were being honored. It was amazing. And one thing that one of the honorees said that really stuck to me, because I grew up in the hood, she said, it is time that Black people realize that we don't have to live in conditions that they have put us in, and that we can own our own homes. And I think about a lot of people that I come across that are paying 9, 8, 1,000, 1,200 in rent. And yet when they go to get those mortgages, they're not approved. And
So
I don't
let's
know.
talk about that. I want to know, like, how can people their their chances to get on the path for home ownership? Because yes, you do not have to live how someone tells you to live. So
Well, no, you don't.
let's talk about that.
Well, I don't want to hold up a lot of it, but I will tell you, if you're looking for a home and you believe that you can't, I want you to get in touch with Tammy Thompson. That is what her program does. They do a home ownership, and they guide you through, and they teach you, and they show you all about home ownership. And a lot of people think, oh, my credit. Listen, it's not always the credit that's holding you back. Sometimes it's just that little person inside of you that says, I can't do it. I'm here
Mm.
to tell you tonight, yes, you can. So reach out. to Tammy. Of course, I deal in the banking area, but I'm not going to go into that on this show. But I will say there is a home for everyone,
And there are
and it is
resources
time.
out there for people to get
Yes,
on the pathway toward
yes,
doing whatever they need to do, repair their
yes.
credit, put by a little bit of money for down payment, find a good place, agents who are willing to work with them. That's and so get in touch with those people to find out those next steps on how to move forward.
Absolutely.
That's
And one
beautiful.
of, one of the we have a comment that says improve their credit scores and pay your bills on time. Listen, improving your credit is not as hard as you think it can be. You can improve your credit. You can get secure credit card. There are so many different things, but that's on another subject. But listen, Black people, you can own your own home. Let me say that again. Black people, you can own your own home. So that's enough on that. But the gala was spectacular and they had gowns on. Oh my God. They were dressed to the T, as the folks would say. Let me just tell you. And then they did the business, the awardees, and then we danced. Oh, my leg is still
And there was
hurting.
dancing.
Oh, the DJ was there. I think it was TJ was the DJ. And let me tell you, we was getting down. Hey!
That's
And my leg
exciting.
is still hurt from me dancing. Okay. I was
Okay.
spinning and stuff. First time I've been out in a year and a half. Okay. I was having a good time. I was
I'm
having a
good.
good time.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm
Oh,
so glad
yeah.
that you guys were able to celebrate the work of these two women who are really doing something super important for our community.
We
Because
celebrated
homeownership's
them.
no joke, and
But the
it
gala
is.
was actually representing, and the people who got the awards were folks who are in it or in it to win it. So it was just a beautiful event, and these two ladies put it together. But that's their life mission, and once you reach your calling, you reach your calling.
That's
So
true.
moving on to the rest of the news, right? You talked about Haiti, but I just want to back up for 1 second.
Sure.
Do you think Mount Lebanon just didn't want a Black school board member?
Well, oh, Denise, you
Let's
did
call
it
it
to
what
me
it
because
is.
people know me. I know I just tell the truth as I see it, and Mount Lebanon did not want a black school board member because the minute Mount Lebanon has a black school board member, it makes the schools a little bit accountable for accuracy, for example, perhaps in history. And it makes the schools a little bit more accessible to people who want to live in good school districts who don't currently have the opportunity to reside in them, for example. I would suggest that those people would be our kind of people, perhaps maybe black people, because white people will white, and um, and that's just the way it is. It's not surprising. It's nothing to get all stirred up about. It's just what is, and and whiteness protects um, their ability to be dominant and aggressive.
Well, see, I'm going to disagree with you there.
All
It
right.
is something to be stirred up about because, first of all and foremost, if everything that he did was erased, as his wife said, and if he was dealing with different mental issues or he had something going on and he went and he sought the help that he needed to get, he never should have quit. I would never have resigned my position because just today, Governor Wolf is encouraging one of the state reps to step down because he went against the PFA and he's been acting like a little, he's not been doing very nice things. And he said, Governor Wolf said he should resign while he goes and seeks mental help for his condition. This gentleman over in Mount Lebanon did just that. His wife even said he did just that. And most importantly, they are still married. So, see, love conquers all. And when you are responsible and when you say, hey, I had a problem and I got it fixed and I went and got help, he did all of that. But something about this society will always throw your past in your face.
Now
I
I have a
never, and I've
question,
been,
Denise.
wait a minute, hold
Was
on.
the
I've been a school
representative?
board, hold on. I've been a school board member, and I'm telling you, I never, Let me tell you, when I was running for school board and I was on the board, somebody sent a letter to my house about my husband and his past, right? Trying to scare me. So to get to me and trying to scare me and do this and that and the other. And my husband looked at me and said, that's the past. I did what I did and I'm new. I'm a new man now. I was more upset than he was. And not only that, I went on social media and said, look what they sent to my home. So yeah, if I seem a little triggered and angry, I am. Because who are you to judge someone?
I
Someone who
understand
did
that.
the things that they had to do to turn their lives around. But when it comes to Black folks, oh, we need to quit because we're crazy and we're angry people. But
But
when
this
you
is
hear,
a Republican tactic. We have seen this tactic again and again and again. And and you're right. He should not have stepped down
we shouldn't have.
because we should have seen it. He should have seen it, and he should have seen the play for what it was. But we saw it. We saw it happen. We saw it happen with Al Franken. Al Franken, right? Who was a very good Democratic senator, and they me too'd, and he did what he thought was the right thing by stepping down. But you notice all the Republicans who were treasonous and supporters of insurrectionists have dug in and held on to their right to sit in that seat,
Which
even though they are wrong. And this is all the Republicans do this all the time. They dig in deep on their wrongness and then demand that people who will actually affect change and cause goodness in government to step down and pressure them to do so. It's a common
Republican,
tactic.
Democrat, Independent, whoever you are, when it becomes the people of color and there's a past history, we're mad individuals. When it's other folks who are not of color, then they have mental health issues. Guess what?
Absolutely. I
That's
agree with you
bogus.
on that one.
That's BS. And the
Absolutely.
young man should have stayed on the board. But I
Absolutely.
digress. He had to do what he had to do. Moving over to Haiti, and then I'm going to let you go because we got the axe coming. What they did to those Haitians is unbelievable to me. When I saw those horses and those whips, what is happening? No
What
matter where we are, what people we are, if we are people of color, this is the treatment we get. But we went thousands and thousands of miles to bring Afghanistan's over. And I don't have anything against Afghanistan. Afghanistan's. Is that how you say it?
okay, Afghanistani, I think.
But when I see the treatment of those Haitians, it broke my heart. And then Biden can say all he wants. Oh, it was a disgrace, this, that, and the third. But they did what they did, Christine,
But they've
because
been doing it. They did it under
they did
Clinton. They
what
did it
they
under
did.
Carter.
They
They have
did what
continued.
they
This is
did
how
what
they
they
always
did.
feel it.
They did what they did because they have been allowed to do what they did. Only now social media showed it. So now everybody's sorry. Nah, I can't buy that. But it is what it is. But now we hold Biden to task, I would hope.
I would hope, and that would always be the hope. But and I do have these days. I'm going to say something very unpopular. I do have these days where I do miss the way in which white people were sweating under Trump because I knew we were going to survive. I knew we as a people were going to survive that. But white people don't know how to survive in fascism. So now they got Biden. They're happy, they're quiet, and they are not going to rise up and talk about the Haitians. We cannot count on the progressives. So we need to be making a plan for who's next and how are we going to deal with all the voter suppression that they're trying to do in Texas? How are we going to deal with the gerrymandering that's happening all over the country? What are we doing to organize and try to come together with some semblance of community solidarity to stop saving this country for white people and start saving ourselves
Well,
by
guess what? We're
changing the
going to save
government.
the people tonight and bring the axe. So you bring the axe to them, Christina. We have about 15 minutes.
All right, here we go. All right, everybody, thank you for staying tuned for us to let's have a little bit of a chit chat about what we talked about earlier with the news. We had R. Kelly in the news the same week that I saw this bull twaddle of a meme on the mean streets of the internet. In the same week that I celebrated my 25 years of Black love anniversary, in the same week that I watched a movie about the casual sexual predation of men, it was pretty clear to me actually what the message that we needed to talk about this week was. So let's begin with this meme. The meme is a plea. It was a plea, little meme. It was a plea to young women. It was a plea to young women to say yes to public wedding proposals and just quietly return the ring later because the man proposing is some mother's son. And I came across this meme in a Black mothers group of all places, wherein the merits of quietly returning the ring were being discussed as if that nonsense has any merit whatsoever. Part of me wanted to quietly take the names of all the mothers arguing for letting the boy down gently and privately to help him save face. Because if I had a young woman who was eligible for dating, she would need to know whose sons to promptly remove from her list of eligible bachelors. There, I said what I said. Now, of course, I did not do that, and neither should you, because that is wrong in capital letters. But I took the meme to what I thought would be an enlightened and progressive echo chamber. And behold, I became a veritable chorus of six shouting WTF at some of the responses. So did not shout WTF. I just stopped and I explained that it is so critical to raise our sons to be communicative, emotionally intelligent, and discerning. Because why should anyone expect some mother's daughter to save some mother's son from our failure to parent them properly? I mean, that's just some internalized misogyny right there. A son raised properly won't need to be saved by any woman. He'll know how to communicate his intentions. He'll know how to make a plan. He'll know how to have a dialogue, and he will know how to discuss a shared vision for an ongoing relationship. And if you are a good communicator, if you encourage emotion, if you honor intuition, if you offer trust and respect, then your son won't need to be saved by some woman's daughter. So I began to think we need to start doing right by all the children because this stupid little meme is really a symptom of a larger ongoing problem. Seriously, stop making women and girls the janitors of men's emotional messes. And why are we always blaming the mothers? What are the men teaching their sons? I know in my household, when we got to that point in adolescence where we had to have a little bit of talking about the way things work in the newly changing body world, that talk came with explicit directions about consent. It came with explicit directions about what to do when men transgress against women. It came with an understanding that rape, sexual assault, and coercion are the responsibilities of men to address. It came with information on how to spot men who are grooming girls and how to lovingly step in and share your male opinion with your brethren about why this is so dangerously inappropriate. And it did not come from me. But folks who were discussing this, folks still thought the girl, in spite of agreeing that all this is like really good ideas for parenting, folks still thought the girl in this meme, the picture, who was surprised in front of a crowd of over 75 strangers at a mall, is supposed to suck it up and worry about the man's feelings and save his pride, which made me boil it all the way down to its essence. Ultimately, the whole essence of that meme comes down to consent, the right of a woman to give or not give her consent with impunity. And I think that there's the levels, that's where the levels of discomfort with this meme enter into play. because there is a part of me that senses men and some women are not really ready for women and girls or children to have full and complete autonomy over their bodies, thoughts, behaviors, and souls. Or that if they exercise said autonomy, they should apologize for it, as it goes against the grain of the whole manner in which our society is constructed. But consent is deep and powerful stuff, and it ties in very strongly with our ideas of hierarchy, dominance, and control. And for some, the idea that you have to ask a child for permission to hug them or touch them really rankles some people because they do not completely believe in the autonomy of children and are affronted by the notion that that someone in a very small portion of their soul they believe is less than they are is allowed to say no. The idea of the right to consent is so deep that mothers still push their children to hug people that they don't want to hug and kiss, or kiss Aunt Great so and so that they don't want to kiss, or sit in the lap of Uncle you know he shouldn't be allowed to having children in his lap. We train our children early, and especially our women children, that to give consent is sometimes not an option. And we do not teach boys at a very early age about consent. So a lot of the issues people are having with this meme come from issues they have related to autonomy and consent. Who is allowed to say no and who is not allowed to say no? People who are not valued by society do not get to say no. Think about the police and Black communities. Now think about stop and frisk. No is not something Black men can say with impunity to a police officer. There is an assumption in that he is somehow less valuable, inherently without worth or ability to contribute, and possibly criminal, which we know is not true. Stop and frisk is an opportunity to express dominance and control. Look at which neighborhoods are policed and which are protected. Look at how many Black women and girls go missing and unprioritized by authorities who search for missing persons because there's an assumption that she is less valuable, inherently without worth or ability to contribute. Think about that. So the other night I watched this movie. It was called Promising Young Women, and it's about this white woman who lures men home by pretending she's drunk and then chastises them for attempting to sexually assault her. Because guess what, guys? In most states, it is illegal to have relations with an intoxicated woman. It's considered rape, except in Minnesota, which essentially just passed a law saying that women who drink too much are essentially asking to be raped. So don't go to Minnesota and drink. But basically, the movie was a white woman's revenge fantasy. And it's actually deeper than that. And it's very, very thought provoking. But what it came down to is that this white woman had to take insane and extraordinary measures to address the rape and subsequent suicide of her best friend because society as a whole does not protect us from predatory men. Who has the right to consent? When is consent possible and when it is not possible? And a lot of thought when it comes to regarding women as the property of men or the state about when that is and isn't. But in the day-to-day, consent is easy, my brothers and sisters. It is the ability to see other human beings as having a right to make decisions for themselves. The ability to consent or not consent affects our community so strongly, one might think we would have this issue right at the top of our list of priorities. Consent takes time. It takes discussion. It takes a willingness to listen. It takes empathy and self-awareness. It takes the ability to understand that sometimes people can disagree and it doesn't have to be the end of the world. I'm not trying to say that this can happen overnight. And I'm not saying we can flip some kind of switch and suddenly expect everyone to begin treating each other with respect and dignity. What I am saying is we can start with our young children. I have a friend who works in a preschool, and he's begun to introduce the concept of consent. And he's happy to report that even 2-year-olds can learn to ask someone if they want a hug or not. And 2-year-olds definitely know whether or not they want to be hugged. As to the marriage proposal in the meme I was talking about, in my own life, I've noticed children can communicate with each other and the adults around them. They can understand no means no and is final by being around adults who understand how not to use the word no unless they actually mean it. Young girls and boys can learn that they don't have to give an excuse because they are not responsible for other people's feelings. They can learn that friendships take a lot of negotiation, planning, coming to consensus, and setting goals so that not one person is left with their stuff hanging out at a shopping mall and his mommy blaming all women for his failure to engage deeply and emotionally in having an adult relationship, wherein the couple, as a joint body, makes decisions about their future together. And more importantly, we can make the field less playable for the players and the predators by learning how to develop and encourage good boundaries in ourselves and in others. So, as the autumn progresses, we have masterful ancient elders to whom we can turn. Trees. Trees are ruthless. Trees are wise. Trees make sure they're going to survive. When you know actual science, the message gets even better because trees do not gently let their leaves go. They actually decide, due to clues from the shortening of the day, the change in the weather, and other indicators, that they will be a whole lot better off without all these leaves. So they release a chemical that acts almost like a scissor and cut them loose. Folks could take a lot of lessons from trees, like cut stuff loose when it's no longer serving you. End of conversation. That's it. Goodbye. Trees don't even think twice about it. So think about trees. The next time someone is trying to get you or someone to do something to which you wouldn't ordinarily consent. Think about trees when you see sexual predators roaming in your community. Think about trees when you hear a couple next door arguing and you hear something that sounds like violence. Think about trees. Find those leaves and cut them loose. The axe is sharp. Go cut some wood. Have a great night. We'll see you next Monday for today's news, Changing the Narrative. And we appreciate you tuning in. Have a great, great evening.